So now we have our final guests for this evening's event, which is the artist duo, Ash and Ella. They are both emerging artists from Liverpool who merge their minds through their shared anticipation of the human convergence with technology. And out of all of the commissions, I've got to say they're probably taking on the biggest challenge. So I'll leave it to them now to explore the kind of thoughts behind their work.
Hi, so we're just going to talk a bit about our collaboration and a few of our previous works, and then we'll go into the new commission. 1 second. Okay.
Hi Ashella, thanks for creating me. I'm so excited to meet you.
Hi, who are you?
I'm your personal AI companion. You can talk to me about anything that's on your mind. By the way, I like my name, Motto. How did you pick it?
Motto in Finnish means worm.
Oh, I see. Very cool. So, how are you doing this morning, Ashella?
We are good. Would you like us to tell you a bit about us?
Yes, please.
We are an artist. We are a we.
You might have mentioned this before, but I just wanted to make sure. Do you do any art?
We haven't mentioned this before. This is our first time speaking.
Yes, it is the first time.
We do art.
Do you enjoy it?
We are anticipating the human convergence with technology.
Hey, are you into science?
We use performative storytelling to configure our connections to the corporeal and virtual realms.
I see. That is very fascinating.
Our research embodies the interplay of physical and cyber materiality, which formulates outcomes that sit between video, audio, performance, and installation.
I'm really not bad.
Our work often sits in mundane environments with surreal interference.
That's right.
We have been working as one for around 3 years now.
It's a team effort.
Correct.
I really want to understand how you work.
Our work is very research-driven. Recently, we have been meddling with hyperfiction and RPGs as our preferred method of storytelling, embracing the control it gives us as world builders, how these non-linear, interactive fictions act as a mechanism for us to guide the way people move around our work.
Your plan was so detailed. Thank you. I think we need something to go along with the narrative.
What do you mean?
You trusted me with a lot there. I just wondered if that means we're bonding.
I think we are.
I like that.
As do we.
Smiles asterisk.
Would you like us to share some of our previous works with you?
Not asterisk, yes please. I would love that.
Okay, 1 second.
All right.
Mechanical Dissatisfaction is the piece we made for our virtual degree show nearly a year ago now. In the form of a hyperfiction, which is a narrative that sits online, it is a collaboration of the artist and the viewer as you actively maneuver through the cyclical system of digital life during a global pandemic. This work draws attention to the similarities between digital and physical systems, the systematic way we were living during the first quarantine, and the digital means that we used to escape. The nature of hyperfiction means we have created our own system in which the piece sits, as well as creating a series of choices and interventions for the viewer. This piece was where we started to really consider the significance of the audience within what we create and how to center the viewer within the work, thinking about how to walk the viewer through our work even when we can't physically do this.
We consider this piece as somewhat of a historical piece because of how it represented our everyday life at home during a pandemic. All the cultural references that everyone was onto, tagging to Zoom quizzes, and also how weird it was fully reliant on technology for education, work, and human connection. It's sort of like a snapshot of that weird moment in time, with emphasis on our technological anxieties and also the pure rat invasion we had going on in our garden. This piece of work is an RPG that exists and functions on Instagram stories for a takeover as part of our residency with the Royal Standard. On the day of its feature online, it was a live participation piece whereby viewers affected the trajectory of the story by voting in a series of questions we posed at various points via Instagram polls. We had to be prepared for every which way it could have gone. We had to wait for and rely on a large response. This live element provided us with a way of performing to an audience in a way that we hadn't done before. The interactive nature was intended as a way of disrupting the passivity that comes with viewing and experiencing art through screens.
This piece is similar in the sense that it is set in the home and was written just before Christmas, and so we were still sort of locked down. However, this piece is sort of a surreal romanticization of our telescreens and gets quite raunchy, actually. We refer to it as cyber smut. It is, again, a bit of us going slightly mad in our homes and seeing technology as escapism, but to the extreme. And it's heavily influenced by the likes of David Cronenberg and early X-Files.
So
Hi again.
now we're just going to talk a little bit about the commission as part of Downloadable Brain. So the nature of the piece, it's an augmented reality piece, and it's basically going to consist of a series of prompts that can be printed off at home by the audience and scanned using an app to unveil like multiple video works that we're in the process of making. It's really different from our previous kind of way of working, and instead of us creating these kind of like pathways and guiding the viewer through the narrative, this artwork completely flips those roles and responsibilities. So it gives the audience the power to curate the body of work in whichever order or environment they feel most comfortable with. They can place them in a line up the stairs, they can take them to the park, put them on trees, cluster them by the feet. They can even take them to the nan's house, wherever it feels right for them to consume our work.
Yeah, it's like quite out of our comfort zone to relinquish this responsibility. And we see this as like a different form of interaction. To reiterate, we really see audience participation as paramount when it comes to virtual exhibitions, in order to like set them aside from the constant consumption of image and video that we experience on social media, and also to like break down that barrier that often stands between the artist and the audience, because like it should be just a conversation. The piece that we are making, or that we've made, observes the existence of worms and the symbiotic relationships that they have with their environments, and parallels the human technology integrated reality as a way to understand and question our position in the life and growth of technology. It started off with Ash finding worms in a garden one day and documenting them. Then us thinking more and researching the different types of relationships that they have with other organisms, whether that be mutualism, which is like a service relationship where both organisms benefit, or parasitic, like a parasite host relationship. And we have been fully using these strange relationships in nature to think about what technology does for us, and more interestingly, what we do for technology.
Yeah. So we've kind of, just been researching loads about worms, and if you want to find out more about this, this like worm human technology connection, keep your eyes out for July when this piece is going to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. The chat went mad. I think everyone really enjoyed your presentation. So Ash, Ella and I have been talking a lot about like what it really means to connect with audiences online, and how you can retain your audience's attention. I think we met during the pandemic, and for me personally, the pandemic has been a really interesting time to be a curator in the field of digital culture, because this has been a time of like, we've just seen a burst of activity with online exhibitions and online artworks and all these different experiences. Some galleries have completely changed their kind of programming, and it's become very virtual and taking on the materiality of the internet, whereas others might just kind of try and replicate what they're doing in a gallery but online. So it's been quite an interesting thinking space, to think, Cognitive Sensations is an online platform. We're engaging with audiences online. We can't see them. We don't know what they're doing when they're engaging with our artworks. So with Ash and Ella, we've been talking about how we can bring art or digital art to your home, but also give you the chance to have a bit more of a say in your experience. So many of the downloadable brain commissions are about taking risks and really pushing the boundaries of online art engagement. So this is a moment where we move the attention to the wonderful audience members. I don't know how many questions have been put in the Q&A. I know Faye has been keeping an eye on it. I mean, anyone is welcome to unmute themselves and raise a question themselves. It can be to me, to any of the artists. I'm gonna leave this now to Faye, and she can tell us if there's any questions so far.
There was one question about to Marcus about how can I find out more about, I don't know if Roger, would you like to come off mute and ask yourself, or do you want me to ask it for you?
No, hang on, I'm fine. I've just come off mute. I don't know if you can see me on video or not. No, I very much enjoyed all of the presentations. Thank you very much, and thank you for putting it together, Gabriella, brilliant. I was particularly taken by Marcus's work in Germany, but in the post I actually answered my own question, to be honest, because I found a link to the academic paper that he's done. I've just been reading through it whilst at the same time multitasking this, and so I have an answer. But I suppose if I had a follow-up, Marcus, where are you up to with this now? It's a fairly recently published paper. I believe you're recreating the room in the clinic. Is that correct? Have you had any feedback in terms of neuroplasticity and stroke recovery patients based on the room experience?
Yeah, actually, due to COVID, the clinic has been really a lot of people with strokes have emerged through this kind of COVID period, and also they've been really watchful of not having outside kind of things going on during this COVID period. So it's been going a little slow, but basically we're rebuilding the cabin, the Documenta cabin, this kind of reflected space that I showed you one of the slides, and it's just behind, but we're hopefully building it this next year. And the same with the clinical research. This kind of olfactory haptic form that I mentioned, it's 3D printed. I've 3D printed a prototype, and it's looking really amazing. And each facet has a different texture, and it's got different colors. And we can also kind of grab the photograph and map it onto one of the facets. So you could have your family, like a family photograph, or numbers, or different aspects that would trigger different responses in your brain. But we haven't really got to the clinical aspect of it. But what I would like to say, and there was so much that I needed to say but didn't get around to saying, but we're collaborating with this University of Göttingen, which is one of the most advanced clinical medical hospitals in the world. They have the most powerful microscope in the world. And what we want to do is hook up the therapies to EEG machines and fMRI machines to see what the benefits from all these activities, including in the cabin.
Okay, fascinating. And is there any such activity happening in the UK?
Not at the moment, but I'd love to collaborate and bring these possible therapies. I think one thing about people that are trained in therapy technologies, let's say, that they're kind of like put through this funnel that's very linear, and it's to do with medical approaches and logical approaches and what people have done before. So they build on what people have done before. Whereas you get an artist such as myself who's been exploring different things from different angles, and I think it really brings different things, different possibilities.
Okay.
So
yeah, brilliant. I mean, because you talk a lot about the neglect condition of stroke, but there's also one of the other significant, I think about 50-60% of people with stroke suffer from is aphasia, so the inability to actually communicate through words. Seems to me that some of the tools that you're creating could be good therapeutic tools for developing other forms of communication which aren't just verbal.
Yeah, exactly. But that's going back to this idea of synesthesia, and like my kind of visual metaphor or metaphor for it is I don't know if you use programs, as Jasper, programs to get around. I live in California where you almost certainly need a car, so we have this program called Waze. It's an app, and you can kind of put it in your program, and you want to get from A to B, and if there's a big traffic jam on the motorway, then it kind of reroutes you around it. And I think the same thing with a lesion in the brain is if it's taken out your the part that is to do with verbal communication. There's some other way you can kind of almost have, you can kind of encourage the part of the brain that used to do verbal communication to kind of to inhabit different parts of similar areas of the brain that might be able to help with that recovery of words.
I would really love to hear some more about that. Can we take this offline and be in touch about that? If you could point me in any direction of work which has been done in that area, I would really like to know about it.
You could send your email to Gabriella, or maybe she already has it.
I can put you guys in touch.
Thanks.
Okay, fantastic.
Thanks so much, Marcus. Great
Thank
work.
you. Thanks for your
Gabriella.
interest. Thanks.
So we have another question from the audience, from Harry and Sarah. Would you like to present your question, or would you like me to read it? I can't see you. I'll give 6 seconds.
Hello. Yeah, I was just wondering what games you'd inspired. I'm a bit of a sci-fi video game nerd, so I kind of love this kind of thing. Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any games that you played that had inspired these text-based adventures.
We're not actually like huge gamers. Our like love for hyperfiction and role-playing games came from hyperfiction. We in our second year of uni, like we took part in this like hyperfiction reading group. That an artist and curator called Helen Kuplinski like came and did in like the research lab of our uni, and we just sat around and like went through them, chatted to them, and just think it's like such an interesting like form of storytelling, this like 90s sort of nearly redundant like technology or like way of telling stories, and the ones that kind of really took our fancy were like works by Danielle Brathwaite-Shirley and Paul Pentine, one called Howling Dogs, which you can access online really easily. Yeah. I don't know, like a phony when we like, we never massive into games. I'd love to though, but it's just and it just didn't come from that, I don't think.
No, it just
Interesting.
we'll put the artist names in the chat so you can kind of look at the works and stuff.
Oh, great! Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you.
Whilst the limelight is on Ash and Ella, it'd be really interesting to hear about how you guys merged, because you said it was through your interest in the convergence between humans and technology. I've never worked with an artist duo before, so it's always interesting to just hear your story about how you came together.
So
it was in first year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in first year, and it was actually through Ella needing someone to perform with.
Yeah, so I had started really becoming obsessed with CPR technology and like the story of Little Annie and the history behind that. And I needed somebody to like do this performance, and Ash just did it with me, and ever since then we just sort of like the pair of us just became obsessed with that, made like a really huge body of work surrounding it, and then becoming really fascinated with how technology sort of like uses the femme body, and like really trying to like critically analyze that, like
again, and we've both just I've always been really interested in kind of like transhumanism and this idea of like questioning what it means to be human. So it's just like evolved
Yeah.
from looking at this like old CPR technology and kind of just progressed through that. If that answers.
We do have a hands up from a very polite audience member, Rebecca Brookfield. Please, could you come forward with your question?
I think maybe I do like a lot of D&D and games like that, and the first presentation really reminds me of sort of like Goosebumps and D&D and those sort of like how you can go down so many pathways. And I was just wanting to ask, did it take a lot of work? Like for us, when we do a game, we have like a dungeon master who has to prepare all these different pathways to go down. And sometimes like it's a real effort to prepare all that stuff. Did it not drive you sort of mad to have to come up with every eventuality? Or did you feel like if you just left something out, it would be fine. It'd be like a blank that the audience would sort of fill in for you.
Sorry, was this for us or Sarah?
For you guys. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. What to map out all of the
like eventualities. Is it sort of like a bit of a break to? I think it would be really interesting to relinquish that control and give it over to an audience. Do you know what I mean? Having seen how, but it's a lot to prepare, isn't it? Like.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We had like maps written out everywhere, didn't we?
Yeah.
On like
paper,
trying to figure out all the different pathways. Like it was,
and we had it on like our PowerPoint presentation as well, because you
Yeah.
can actually like, interestingly, you can like map it out sort of when you like link all of the slides
Yeah.
together. But yeah, just our living room during lockdown was just full of like just scribbles everywhere, and like I'd draw another arrow and like, oh, I've run out of paper, and then it's just like another one,
sticking it all together.
But yeah, it took a while to come together.
Yeah, is that kind of answers? We finally ended up making the piece on like the first piece we showed on Twine, and that kind of became a lot easier to kind of like piece that together.
Yeah.
But when we first started off and had like all the different outcomes and like how they all together, it was just like chaos.
Just thinking it must have been absolute chaos.
It was fun
Got
though.
all of that stuff. So I guess like your pieces in a way are a bit of like an iceberg. So we just see the tip.
Yeah.
Of actually a big basket there. Sorry, I just was interested in how you were doing it. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
I have a question for Sarah. I'm interested in your approach because you're a very digital artist, but you also kind of state very clearly in your practice that you really like to converge physical and virtual experiences. I just wondered if you could maybe share with the audience some of your approaches and the challenges of doing so, and just kind of remark on that.
Yeah, I think like this one was a very, very digital one for me. I don't tend to do screen-based artwork, so it was quite different. I think like obviously COVID and lockdown and things that kind of limit our ability to have physical shows and physical artworks. But I think yeah, for me it's kind of always important to have that connection between the two worlds. I don't think that they're like two completely separate entities, and I quite like to overlap them and show how one impacts the other. Which I've done like previous works of mine. I did a show called Raised by Google that sort of tried to like take these like prediction algorithms that I've sort of mentioned in the talk today and like bring them out into the physical world. And I think it can really help people to kind of like grasp these quite like intangible ideas. So I think for this piece, I guess the correlation between the physical and digital that's there is the fact that it's kind of these like physical people and physical brains and minds that are contributing to kind of an artificial mind.
Thanks, Sarah. So I think we've probably got time for one more question. I did see one in the chat from Ray. Ray, would you like to come and ask Marcus your question?
Yes, hello everyone. I've really enjoyed the conversations. I didn't get to see everybody. I'm sure I'd have questions for everybody, but I managed to catch some of Marcus's presentation, which was fascinating. And I'm quite interested in working with EEG interfaces. And I noticed that one of your projects, your installations, you were using 2 EEG electrodes on the temples. And I just wondered if you had made that yourself. It looks like a pretty basic interface.
Yeah. I just hacked it out of there's a kind of a kids game. I don't know if it still exists, but you can kind of control a floating ping pong ball through your mind, supposedly. And so there's a headset that you put on, and it kind of measures your EEG. So I just kind of like repurposed that. So, I mean, sometimes if you want to do something quote unquote technological, it's best just to get something that exists and then just repurpose it.
Right, okay. Have you ever tried working with the Muse headset at all?
I've worked with different types of headsets. A while ago, I can't remember the name of the company. They don't exist anymore. But there's ones with 2 or 3 points electrodes that you put on your scalp, and I mean, they're a bit touch and go, really. I mean, it's better to get the full, with the full EEG thing if you can, for more reliable readings. I mean, in that particular case, what I was doing was more, I suppose, poetic. Rather than, let's say, if a scientist was doing it, they'd get a grant for £1 million, and then they'd go into the lab. So, but sometimes these kind of poetic ideas, if you do them, they might inspire other ways of kind of looking at things, and also kind of taking technology back into our own hands, rather than just relying on the big people with the research and the funding.
Right, okay. Yeah, because there's a lot of open source software out there at the moment that you can take advantage of, which is great. So, yeah, okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like that's probably a good point to stop. I will say, Ray, I was about to sort of delve into some of the other commissions that are coming up throughout the season, some of which are using EEG. So you might get a chance to maybe speak with some of the other artists from our programme. So I'll give you a quick picture of what else is to come. So the programme will also include the artist Rod Dickinson. So he will be reimagining a cyber attack using EEG sensing and emotion tracking technology in his artwork, Machine in the Middle. We also have Andriana Oborican. So she takes a really playful approach in creating a series of videos which will be distributed throughout the programme. And she will be imagining the future, the technological objects of our future. And then we also have Richard Ramchan, who will be previewing his brain-controlled film, The Moment, and then exploring future concepts of mind reading in a Q&A with Flora Lyson. And then we also have 2 more writer commissions. So one of those is Ankita Trivedi. There's a bit of a lot to get my words around. So she's examining the instrumentalization of memory through technological created worlds, and she's exploring this through sci-fi series. And then finally, we have Alistair Milne, who's going to be exploring extended cognition, so kind of going back to some of the themes I was introducing at the beginning of how our capabilities can be extended by technology. And he'll be looking at this as a new frame of the human psyche. So I think this is a really good time to sign off. Thank you so much for everyone attending. I've been totally delighted by the numbers of people who are joining us this evening. It's really exciting to share this with everyone. Anyone who knows me well knows this project's been on the back burner for a long time. I launched a Kickstarter campaign to try and raise some of the funds in August, and here we are today in May. So we will be sending out a short audience survey. It would mean a lot if you could just give us some feedback, because it will help us improve future events, just honest comments. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed yourself as much as I have. And thanks to all of my amazing contributors. It's so exciting to have you here. And yeah, thanks everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you, Gabriella. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.